Hi there, this is H. Victoria, Hogro Atkerson again, and I forgot to push the button here. Sorry. Hi! um, I got a call today from one of my sisters. I have three, and she wanted to make a suggestion that I talk about my life as a writer, and she also wanted to know why is that paint can sitting on my buffet, and I have to tell you, it's sitting there because I haven't gotten to it yet. I'm in a process of cleaning the house and getting ready for the holidays. So that paint can is there to remind me that I still have to do the woodwork. And which means cleaning it first. I'm a southern girl, you got to clean before you decorate. So that's sitting there to remind me to get busy. Um, and I sometimes, because I'm thinking of plots and ways to work out schemes that I'm working on in a plot of whatever, I don't know. But anyway, I haven't gotten to that chore yet, but it will be done before long. Sometimes it takes a little while. Probably, I will probably get to it this weekend. Let's pray. We'll see. Anyway, writing is my priority, and housekeeping is not on my priority list. I enjoy cooking now. I love to cook. I cook all the time. And baking. I'm baking cookies today, in fact. Um, I won't even, we'll talk about the cooking later because it's interesting because the fact that I'm making these particular cookies is a tale in itself, but I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get sidetracked. I am a writer. My writing usually starts in the well, as soon as I wake up, really, because I start thinking about what I'm going to be writing about today. I think about those things that I'm going to be challenging myself with doing. Yeah, now I'm going to use the book that we've been talking about as an example, which is Stones Along the Path, my first publication. I usually start thinking about this as soon as I wake up. And as a matter of fact, I always tell people take a few minutes when you first wake up to think about your characters or your storyline, because I think that's the most magical time in the world. And if you have a pen by your bed, you can always write notes down or things that come to you. It's a great tool, and it's like the magic hour for me. Before I know that I'm asleep, but I'm waking up, and I know I'm going to be awake in a few minutes, and I just sit there and I think about my characters. I think about my story. That's like the most precious time to me because I usually come up with some wonderful ideas. So I suggest that you do it too and see if it works for you. Now, I usually start thinking about what I'm going to write. And like in Jessica's case, she had a problem. She married a guy who was a liar and a cheater. And he was a very domineering chauvinist. So she had this problem. She's madly in love with this guy, and he's madly in love with her, but they have issues. So, how are we going to work this out? And come to think of it, why did I even why did this problem come up in the first place? How did I choose that subject? It was a family story. Jessica's problem came out of a family story that was always talked about quietly and sometimes discreetly and out of the ears of children, but like being a what do you call it, a newsy child, a child that always wanted to hear everything that people were saying. I would always listen and try to find out the details. So I found out the details. I can't tell you what it is because it's in the book and I want you to read the book. But anyway, this particular tale, which is Jessica's problem, uh, fascinated me. It always has since since I was very. I don't remember when I didn't know about this problem. But anyway, I started to. I wanted to write about that issue, and I also wanted to do something else as I thought about who Jessica was, trying to figure out who is she as a person. And I decided to use my Peace Corps experience. I was in Brazil. Uh, in Espiritu do Santo, which is the state north of Rio de Janeiro. I was there for half of my term. The rest of the time I was in in Rio de Janeiro. So I decided to combine this thing because I really wanted to tell my family what it was like being a Peace Corps volunteer, but I didn't want to bore them. We have so many storytellers in in our family that some people get a reputation for being like the biggest bore ever. And I had a beautiful aunt, wonderful, wonderful person, and she would tell these stories over and over and over again, and she would not change them like one iota. But we had to go through the ritual every time she came to visit to listen to her stories. They were great stories now, and especially if the first time you're hearing them, wonderful stories. But then after you get older and older and you've heard them so much, you're like, here she comes again. Like, it's your turn. You listen now. Go this way. But I didn't want to be that person. So I decided to make Jessica a Peace Corps volunteer and use some of my experience in the Peace Corps with that. Now, the part about her marrying and having this guy that loves her more than anything in the world, this undying, thirsty love that Akinyele has for Jessica, that never happened to me. I have a wonderful relationship with my husband. It's been great, and it's funny because I married a Martian, by the way. He doesn't know it, but he's a Martian. Uh, I decided that I was going to put those two elements together, this whole family story and my Peace Corps experience, and that way I can share that information with my family, exactly how it was, and some of the difficulties of being a Peace Corps volunteer, and some of the issues that came up. Although I didn't get into detail, but there's a lot there, and I may do something later on that. But right now, I felt that Jessica was a good vehicle to share those stories because I don't want to be the person who people say, oh, here she comes again with that awful story. I don't want to be that person. Uh, we love stories in my family. We celebrate those stories in my family, but I don't want to be that person that get um, caught up in that. So it's an interesting occupation to be a writer because you get the opportunity to create great characters. So when I start figuring out my day, and I'm telling you this because my sister was saying, well, that's something you need to tell people why that paint can is sitting there. So I'm telling you this because uh, I think it's relevant to you if you are aspiring to be a writer or if you're a good reader. A lot of people like to read about authors and what they do to create their stories or to write a particular passage or the background story. I think that's just as fascinating, and that's why I'm busy sharing this with you. It's one of those things that I think makes life interesting, but housework comes last on my list. uh, I enjoy the art of putting stories together, and a lot of times it's like making a quilt. You're taking a fabric from one place and another fabric, another color, another shade, and you put it together and you make a great quilt because you're combining so many different fabrics and threads, and then you have a masterpiece on your hand. So it's really a great thing to weave all your experiences together. Like, although I may not have Jessica's experience, where she had this overwhelming love affair with this guy, but I can think about what would happen to me if I met someone who would had those problems with the man. I know he loves me, but he is this liar. What would I do? How quickly or how well would I stick to my principles and beliefs? And I tell you, I know I'm not as strong as Jessica is because I'm not. I don't think I could do that. But the admiration is there for a person who can do it, and I enjoy the fact that I can put together uh, the literary presence of a person who can do that, to stand up to her beliefs no matter what. And affirm herself, and is so assured in who she is that she can do this. So if you're a writer, take up the challenge, create someone wonderful, someone that you admire, which I do admire my character here. It's fascinating and it's really great. I usually put together my day in the beginning. When I first get up, I check my schedule, make sure I don't have any appointments. If I do, try to take care of that first. Housework usually comes last because it usually gets done in the middle of the night when nobody's around me. When I take a break from my writing, I usually bake or I paint or I clean or do something like that, like I'm doing now. Because presently, I think it's about what 1:30 in the morning. So that's when I come alive. I'm most alert this time of night. So you have to order your own day. Think of your plan, what you're going to write about, how you're going to interpret this character, and how you're going to make her come alive, and what are her beliefs, what are, just what are you going to explore in that personality, and you're going to that will bring the story out. You always have to think about the story and how does her behavior support the story, because if her behavior does not support the story, it doesn't need to be there. So, and it's a great thing to do, to sit back as in, you can take it personally and look at the story and her and your character's behavior and see if it warrants certain aspects that you've already written. And if you can go back and say this is not relevant, then you have to have the courage to cut it out. Maybe put it aside for another character or another time, another day. But that is not what's going to go in here today. So think about what you're going to write about. Prepare yourself. If you need extra pens, extra whatever, extra a coffee mug, a couple of crackers, a few pretzels to sit by you as you're doing your busy work, then do that. Create the environment you need to, so you won't have to keep getting up to do other things. Like I said, that's a typical day. And I usually end my day writing, which my day doesn't end until like 7 o'clock in the morning. So, or sometimes I write straight through. I may write straight through for like 10, 12 hours, which can be insane. But when you're creating something, it gives you energy. And then after that, you collapse. And that's a really good rest because you know you've done a wonderful job, but you have to stick with it. As long as you have these ideas flowing in your brain, you really have to stick with it. So I invite you to do that. If you're a writer, please, enjoy the experience and let it guide you rather than you trying to guide it. You try to guide that experience so that you can have a worthwhile piece of writing when you're done. Okay? Now, my book, Stones Along the Path, can be found on Amazon.com, in Barnes and Nobles on Kindle, and you can also get it at my website, which is www.hvictoriahogroatkerson.com. Check me out, and let's do this again. Okay, take care. Have a wonderful day tomorrow. I say your day is tomorrow. My day will be today. This is my day. So I'm always get confused by that because my day starts when I wake up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So my husband calls me the vampire, but that's okay. I'm very creative at this time of night. So you take care and let me hear from you. Okay. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, you name it. Just type in my name. Leave me a message, okay? And I'll talk to you about those cookies next time. Take care. Blessings always, and much love.